Hello viewers, I'm Daniel Kasahon. This is our talk show, ADDIS Dialogue. In this edition, we have invited Dr. Eleni Gebremedehin, who is CEO and founder of Blue Moon. It is Ethiopia's first youth agribusiness incubator and seed investing platform. Dr. Eleni has proven track record in establishing the first modern marketing system, which is the Ethiopian Commodity Exchange, ECX. Now she has brought Ethiopia's first youth agribusiness incubator and seed investing platform called Blue Moon. Welcome to ABC Studio, Dr. Eleni Gebremedehin.
Thank you, Daniel.
First, let's say, where did the idea of establishing Blue Moon come from, and how have you organized yourself?
Okay, well, first of all, let's just think of a blue moon as something that happens every so often, and that is an exceptional event. And there's even a saying, once in a blue moon. So what we say is, once in a blue moon, an exceptional idea turns into a great company that changes the world. So what we are interested in at Blue Moon is exceptionality. We're looking for innovative, scalable, and potentially transformational ideas that can have an impact on Ethiopia's agricultural or rural economy. So the idea of Blue Moon is to look for youth aged 15 to 29 who have exceptional, brilliant ideas and who want to distill those ideas with us into an investable business that can scale and that can really be transformational. So our idea around Blue Moon was that there are many currently youth centered projects, NGOs, government programs, and that's a wonderful thing. And we also talk in Ethiopia a lot about entrepreneurship development, also a very wonderful thing, and we need to do that in this country. However, out of those thousands of young people that are being trained as micro enterprises, there are some that have exceptional talent, exceptional ideas, and innovative high scale types of ambitions, and those ambitions need to find a home too. And for those kinds of ideas, such as creating a company that would target a business that would reach every farmer in Ethiopia, or a processing that could attract every household in Ethiopia, or something like that, then what we need to do is not just give light touch training and a few weeks of advisory, but rather an intensive type of support and the kind of capital that is high risk, which is not to be repaid as a loan in a few months, but rather as an equity investment that would take even years to materialize. So that kind of a high risk but high potential idea needs to go somewhere. So our plan with Blue Moon is to nationally recruit for young people with those kinds of ideas, to bring them into our program for a period of 4 months. And in those 4 months, we give a holistic type of support, which includes coaching, mentoring, bringing those entrepreneurs in close touch with high-level industry leaders, CEOs of big companies, so that they can exchange ideas. We also have a peer community where there's a co-working space where people can work together, benefit from interaction with the community of other entrepreneurs. And then finally, we also put the first investment on an equity basis of 220,000 birr. So that is the model, that is the incubation plus seed investment model, and we think that what it's doing is filling a gap.
How about its capacity to achieve its goals?
So what we're doing is starting with a team of people that will support, and partners of course, that will support this program. So what we do now is we take 2 batches of startup teams per year. We want the young people to be, the entrepreneurs to be in teams of 2 to 3 or more, but not a solo entrepreneur, because then they have a higher risk of failure. So we want them to be in teams. So what we do in our last batch, which we started in February, we took 6. So the idea is to take 5 to 10 and then to scale that up. In 5 years, we aim to have 300 startups that we have incubated and invested in, and then attracted further financing from other investors.
How many young persons you have engaged in what typical sectors?
So it is focused on agribusiness, but when we say agribusiness, it's actually quite broad, because what we're talking about is pre-production. It could be input provision, it could be production itself, it could be post-production, you know, storage, processing, quality management, marketing, transport, logistics. It could be data services, it could be financial technology services. So it really is actually a very broad area. And what we're also very excited about is agricultural technology, ag tech, which is kind of the idea of digital agronomy, or precision farming or intelligent farming, which is applying technology solutions, robotics, probes, sensors, artificial intelligence to apply to agricultural problems. At the end of the day, we are not just looking at agriculture as, you know, cropping, but also livestock, dairy, honey, fisheries, agroforestry. So again, it's actually a very broad field.
Where are the youngsters now?
So we had a very nice first batch. We started in February, and we just actually concluded something which is the sort of the flagship event of the program, which is that after having incubated the companies, we had 4 startups that made it through the program. We started with 6, but unfortunately some of them, and again this is part of the journey, is that not everybody might make it through because it's a very rigorous program. So we ended up with 4 startups that went into our final event, which is called Lions Den. So if you're familiar with some of the types of programs like this in other countries, in the US, it's something called Shark Tank. In the UK, it's called Dragon's Den, and this has been now tried in a number of countries. And the idea is that it's a televised program where the startups pitch in a few minutes their idea to investors, who on the spot make a decision whether they're going to invest, how much they're going to invest, and at what equity share. So it's a quick thing, and it needs to be, you know, really strong, and the entrepreneurs have to be very confident and strong and really, you know, have done their homework. So that was our part. We're working with our teams, and we had a wonderful event on September 1, the first Lions Den ever in Ethiopia. So the Lions are highly known, well-known business people in Ethiopia. We had for this first Lions Den, we had Ato Gebremedehin Ngatu, head of Fairfax Africa Fund. We had Bethlehem Tlahun, the CEO and founder of Soul Rebels and Garden of Coffee and Republic of Leather. We had Daniel Gad, the CEO of Omega Farms, and we had ADDIS Alemayehu, who's the CEO and founder of 251 Communications. So these are well-known business people, and they were sitting and hearing the pitches from our startups. We had 4 of them in the Lions Den, one by one, and each of them received an investment from the Lions, different combinations of how many Lions for each company. In total, the amount raised in this first Lions Den was 6.4 million birr. So if you can imagine, and along with our investment in each company, that comes to more than 7 million birr raised of investment capital for these 4 companies that were incubated in Blue Moon. So for us, this is an incredible first achievement, and it's a signal to the country and to young people that they should aim big, that they should aspire, that they should, you know, aim for the Blue Moon, because in fact that power is within them, that potential is within them. And I have just had an amazing few months now, 8 months of working with these young people and seeing the potential we have in Ethiopia. And the other thing, Daniel, I want to say is that, you know, when people think of innovation in Africa and hotspots where we have an innovation and let's say a startup culture or an entrepreneur culture, we don't immediately think, the world does not immediately think of Ethiopia. Recently, about a year ago, Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Facebook, came to Africa, and he said, let me go where I can find young people doing exciting business ideas. And where did he go? He went to Lagos and Nairobi, and he ended up investing $24 million of his own money into a company in Nairobi. A few months ago, Jack Ma, the founder and CEO of Alibaba, a very large e-commerce platform in China and the richest Chinese on the planet, came again to Africa. And where did he go? he went to Nairobi and Kigali because he said, I want to find promising African young entrepreneurs. We want these kind of people to think of Ethiopia as a place, 100 million strong population, 70% are youth. We need to be on the map, on the global map, as a place which is a thriving startup ecosystem that we can create. So that's what Blue Moon is all about.
So we have best experience in some African countries.
I think so.
Can we mention their experience, please?
Well, I think that Nairobi is often cited. And sometimes it's not just country, but also even city specific, because what we think about as a startup ecosystem is not just the entrepreneurs themselves, but a community or a pool of people who are interested in investing. So you think of them as venture capitalists, people who are interested in early stage investment. Then you also have support services, business services who can provide, very readily accessible and low cost services to the startup to get started, or accounting services, legal services, etc. Even finding a space to work, which has Wi-Fi and all that, things like that. So I think Nairobi, for the last decade, has already put in place all these pieces of the ecosystem. It's not by any means Silicon Valley or Mumbai and other places in the world, which we also think are really amazing places for startups to start getting into business. Even in Chile, for example, there's been a lot of government focus on trying to create this startup ecosystem so that you have all the pieces lined up. So it's doable. I think Nairobi is probably one very good example in Africa. Another one might be Johannesburg. Another one would be Lagos. But our aim is that Ethiopia and within our immediate vicinity of Addis Ababa, we should be a place that we can attract talent from all over the country and really create businesses that are national scale, even continent scale companies that really are innovative and put, as I said, Ethiopia on the map as a place where big ideas can spring out of young people.
So you are on board, and how are you going to become competitive like Kenya and other African countries?
Well, I think we have a huge advantage, which is that we have 100 million population. So we have a big market. So any business that gets launched in Ethiopia is facing a very big market, and that is a huge strength. That's why Ethiopia is attracting generally a lot of foreign direct investment. And I think that if we can turn that now into an advantage through creating a way to access talent across the country, and then encouraging businesses that are scalable, then we're far along. The other part I think that we also have as an advantage is strong government commitment. The recent youth fund, I'm not very familiar with exactly what's happening on the ground with that, but I think to me it's a signal that this is a government that is taking the youth seriously and that wants to put in place policy measures to encourage youth entrepreneurship and youth engagement. That's really, really important and a very important base for what we're doing. At the same time, I think there are things we still need to do to make Ethiopia an easier place to do business and an easier place for a young person. When I said 15 to 29, that means even below 18, there might be young people who want to register a business, who want to get started and again, as I said, run fast. If we want to have thriving startups, then we need to have an encouragement in the policy and in the sort of the regulatory environment for angel investors, for individuals who are willing to take a risk and put money into another company. And there is no such a department. So we have one-stop shop for foreign investors, but if somebody wants to make these kinds of investments, we don't have that mechanism. We also don't have a regulatory mechanism to do crowdfunding, which is another way for a young startup to start a company and to raise money, is to have crowd financing, and this is something in other countries is really taking shape and picking up a lot of traction. So these are the kinds of things that we also want to work on at Blue Moon. Our first focus is the startups themselves, but the second is this ecosystem that involves government policy and support, that also involves encouraging individual investors and putting in place training and let's say, business services.
Mm-hmm. What about the future of this foundation? How are you taking this foundation to?
So we have started, as I said, with our first batch. We are just about to launch our second batch. We did a national recruitment for the second time in 2017 now. So on October 2nd, we will launch our second batch. The idea is to really create a consciousness among young people that, you know, there is now a place that they can aspire to and apply, and we are getting some incredibly exciting ideas. And a lot of excitement around all of this. We've actually been thinking now in terms of the future about putting into place a venture fund for these kinds of youth businesses, a youth venture fund. We're also planning over the next year and a half to think about a national startup event where we would attract international investors and pull together startup ideas from not just agribusiness, but actually across all sectors, and organize a major flagship event for the country. So these are the dreams and hopes that we also have at Blue Moon, but primarily what we think and what we are aiming for is to incubate and fund 300 companies in 5 years, and out of those companies to see some major multi-million-dollar initiatives come out of that.
What do you expect from stakeholders, from the government, from the public?
Well, I think that, you know, I've already listed some of the things that on the government side we need to start a conversation around. I think proof of concept is important, so we haven't really been doing a lot of policy dialogue yet, but I think there are some things that we need to sit down and say, how can we make this easier? How can we encourage, you know, this, and let's learn from the neighbors and global practices in the rest of the world. How do you encourage a young person to really think at this kind of an innovative level, not just micro enterprise level? So I think there is a government policy discussion that we will be having and hope to have. The other is to encourage, you know, more efficient business services. For example, recently we launched something called Biz4U, which is the idea that we would put together a network of service providers which are immediately accessible to our startups. So if you need a lawyer, if you need an accountant, you need to find, you know, recruit people, an HR agency, and this layer of business service support is very difficult to organize in Ethiopia. It could take the whole 4 months for one of our companies to find a really good lawyer, you know, if we don't help them. So what I think is the more we can encourage this kind of a services, you know, to support startups, then the more efficiently and better we can launch companies, and that's, I think, part of the story of the other countries that I mentioned. So I think these are more or less the main things. From the public, of course, support is always good. Encourage, if you're a parent, encourage your child, you know, to think along these terms. In fact, you know, I've been reading a lot about where does entrepreneurship come from. And it doesn't come from, you know, a training that you get when you're 25 or 35. It comes from being empowered much earlier on in your life to think that you can be the solution, that you have within you the power and, and you have confidence to believe in yourself, in your dreams and your hopes. So as a society, we need to be thinking that we don't wait for somebody else to solve the problems. We don't wait to be told what to do. One of my colleagues, a wonderful woman that I work with, was telling me how she went through the university system here in Ethiopia and then went to Finland to do her master's. And when she arrived in Finland, she was, you know, she had an appointment with her advisor for the first time, and he said to her, "So, what are you planning to study now? Which courses are you going to take?" And she said, "Oh, I thought you invited me to see you so that you tell me what courses I should take." So the mentality is, you know, to be told what to do, and that's not how we're going to solve Ethiopia's, you know, poverty and hunger and development challenges. We are going to do it when 70% of our population that is below the age of 25 grows up thinking they are the solution, they are the future. And so for me, it's been an amazing privilege to work with these kids, these young people who really are aspiring and thinking big, and it's an inspiring thing, actually.
Thank you very much, Dr. Eleni Gebremedehin.
Thank you.
Well, dear viewers, that wraps up the program in this edition. Many thanks for joining us. See you next time with yet another edition of the program, ADDIS Dialogue. Bye-bye.